Welcome back everybody, it's DestinysJesus here. In today's video, I'm going to be looking at MALIBUCA's 5 wins out of 6 games, the world record amount of wins, and this is absolutely crazy. He was playing unbelievably good. There's a lot of things in this video that you guys can learn. Because of the fact that we're coming towards the end of the season, I'm going to be focusing on things that MALIBUCA are doing in some of his games that will be relevant no matter what the season is. How he rotates without hammers, mid-game, end game, first moving without hammers, everything he's doing there, a load of the augment choices that are really good, and of course how he gets refreshes, how he does some crazy clutch plays, a lot of very useful things for you guys no matter what the solo meta is next season. And it's also be very useful for you guys who want to get your first earnings in the last solo cash cup of this season. Without further ado, let's get into 3 tips for early to mid game, and the rest of this video is just going to be all end game tips for you guys who want to get your first earnings. Let's get straight into this. This is honestly a really simple fighting tip, but I guarantee you guys don't do this as much as MALIBUCA does it. Especially when you're playing a higher ping and it's a lot harder to get piece control on people, try to do this more often, which is very simply, is as you're piecing people, so you can see here he's blocked his edit off, but instead of trying to just do things extremely quickly and catch them off guard, look for where the person is moving. Wait for the person to actually run into your piece before you commit to actually going into the box. And you can see here, MALIBUCA gets rewarded with a guy getting into his cone just like this, and he'll also line up a max pump on him straight away. If he just rushed that double edit there, then he's in an awkward situation where he's falling in front of the guy and he can probably get pumped in the back. But in this situation here, MALIBUCA is able to take him out and get really stacked for the rest of this mid game. This is a very, very small tip, but it has really important implications on your overall game. Don't choose your perks or augments when they first pop up. Instead, try to wait until you get a treasure chest like MALIBUCA does here, or get a whole load of safes around your actual drop, or alternatively do things like catching the flag at PY if you land there, and then save all of your gold into choosing a whole load of augments later on in the game, so you can have a sort of structured game plan about what you actually want. I see so many times when I'm watching people play solos, they just choose the augments when they pop up, and that's a really bad thing to do in my opinion. Instead of just choosing, let's say, light fingers because you think it might be useful later on, save up all of your gold until you actually know what sort of play style you want, you know what mobility you have, you know what perks you actually kind of think would suit that gameplay style, and then choose them all in like a batch later on, like just do all 4 at once, and you have an exact idea of what you need at that time. Trust me guys, it will actually completely revolutionize how you play your games, and it's a very minor thing, but it's really important for getting wins. This is a really minor thing, but it's like I saw MALIBUCA do a few times, and it's really good for getting a refresh mid-game. So you can see here, what he does is when somebody's getting fought and they're likely low HP, instead of just brainlessly spraying all of his ammo into the guy and probably ultimately helping the enemy take him out quicker, instead what he does is he sprays the wall to low HP so he can see through it. It's a really key thing. The guy of course is now going to be worried about this wall being low HP and probably end up holding it, so he stops shooting for just about half a second, and while that half a second is going on, now the enemy who's fighting this guy of course is going to jump down, pressure from another angle, and he's able to spray through and get a kill. Works out perfectly in this case. He's able to actually run over and actually try to claim the loot. In some of the other games he actually did this exact same technique and got a hammer from it and got extremely stacked. It's really useful to do, and it's such a minor thing, but it's really important for you guys. MALIBUCA honestly plays solos completely differently to 90% of the players who are playing these solo cash cup finals. First things first is he's fine to play endgame without a hammer, which I know a lot of you guys aren't really comfortable doing. He does this so he can get kill opportunities later on, just like that. Just holding somebody on edge of third zone, he's able to find a refresh just like this. And now, very simply, you might think he's in a bad position, he's not able to get hammer just yet, but he has a very free rotate. Take a look at what he goes ahead and does. He goes ahead and scouts out his rotate here in a second. He makes sure and waits and plays slow for all these people around him to rotate out with a hammer or shadow bomb in this case if they go next to him. Now when there's no threats and there's a little bit of time where he's not exactly going last minute, it's still like 15 seconds of zone closing before it actually starts shrinking in. Then he starts sprinting in, he goes wide around Storm here, and he can get to a really good layer position. And most importantly, he's still cap max, and he's still got the best heals in the game, and he's able to find hammer later on with those good heals. So what do you do in a situation like this, where you're playing edge of third, you get edge of fourth of course, and then you've got a max distance 50-50, and you've got no hammer to rotate this? I know a lot of you guys have struggled a lot in this situation, situation. And this is what MALIBUCA does. First of all, it starts earlier. He uses a lot of his mats, like 30 builds here, into getting to this higher position so he can scout out and be above all these other players. This is really important because it means he knows when they actually rotate here. So he knows when they're going to go ahead and hammer rotate, and that tells him if he can possibly early free rotate. So this guy goes in slightly early. He goes a few seconds ahead of him. Now he's going to wait for last second, and he goes up, which is very important. Never start your rotate by jumping down. Just make sure to always try to go up if you can in a situation like this where you have to rotate on foot. Now he burns a little bit of wood here because he's aware of that threat up on the hill. He spots his other guys rotating as well, and now he chooses a very simple rotate. He just runs along the edge of this hill right here, and he also actually uses redeploy, which I think is really smart. He uses redeploy to sort of scout out as he comes in. He pauses for a second here to scout out all the potential threats in front of him. He's also aware of this guy right here who's healing up behind him, so he tries to make sure he goes a little bit earlier. And then very smartly here, he's getting held by this guy, so he decides to try to line of sight him behind these builds, as you can see. And it works out pretty nicely. He's able to box up, how he does get hit for a lot as he comes in. Whenever you get hit down to this low HP, it's always going to happen in games where you don't have hammers. You need to make sure, again, you did what I showed in my short the other day, which is to actually build a 3x1 just like this. He's got 3 boxes connected, and he's going to sit around in the middle here just to prevent him getting server sprayed. Definitely invest the mats into actually not dying in this situation, because you're going to play for a refresh on first moving. So now MALIBUCA's done the key thing, which is making it into first moving with having no mobility, which is very hard to do, but he's able to do it, and he's still got fairly decent hills and about 500 mats to actually play the rest of first moving out. However, he doesn't decide to just play first moving out, completely shambles, and then probably die second moving, like I know a lot of you guys could. It's only important about focusing on the win hit, so he makes a confident play in a second. First of all, you probably saw what he did. He pre-tubbed front side to make it look like he'd gone, and then he's going to go ahead and sneak behind this guy, hits him for like 150, and this is very, very important. You guys need to remember this. No matter what the solo meta is, give yourself like a 3-second window of trying to find a kill. If you don't get the kill on somebody you hit low within 3 seconds, or let's say they rebox loads and it gets a bit awkward to chase them, forget about it and focus on something else. So you can see here, he tries to run into the guy's box, it doesn't work out, he's going to turn his attention into going for another refresh. And this is where redeploy comes in clutch. He flies into this guy's box, who doesn't see him at all. Unfortunately, he misses his pump and actually gets hit in return. But now he has a very smart play, which is to jump in on a left-hand peak like this and take out Grolls. And now he's insanely stacked. And of course, he does the correct thing, which is inventory management. He focused on getting whites and of course the hammer here. So he heals up back in Storm. Now he's going to go ahead and hold all the splashes and an SMG. And take a look at what he does with redeploy with hammer, which I think is really smart. Is he hammers for most of the zone, then he redeploys as he gets a little bit closer, and he can basically redeploy on a lower layer where it's a lot harder to track him, so he's not redeploying way up in the air, and you can choose a really good position where he wants to land. And even here, where he's chosen a good position to land, he realizes there's a few people around him that could potentially take his wall, so he decides to just say, screw this, and fly towards front side low ground. And he's done the entirety of first moving there with 1 hammer charge, and he's of course got cat mats and a whole lot of splashes for himself to use as well. So some games you're not going to be as shambles, but you're still going to have like no hammers, and of course it might be somewhat difficult. So what MALIBUCA does is very smart. First moving is he redeploy rotates around on high layers, and then towards the end of second moving, or even the start of second moving here in this case, he actually starts playing lower layers. And you can see you've got to remember that you want to be going first towards front side when you're playing these strategies. You don't want to get caught up with people with hammers holding you from front side. So he makes an effort to be the first one redeploying to front side like this, mantles up, is able to get the wall on the guy. It's really important you remember that you can mantle while redeploying in this case, and he's actually able to get a refresh from this just because of that mantle play that he did. From this, he gets a whole load of shadow bombs, which are unbelievably broken in my opinion. I honestly think having 3 shadow bombs might be better than a hammer in some cases, because of the fact that you can get free rotates just like this, where you can just sort of chill around on front side. And what does MALIBUCA do? Again, is he gets front side just like this, and he builds wood. Whenever you're in a position where there's nobody really around you, burn through your wood early. So many people are playing these congested layers where they're sort of forced into using all their hards, and then in the end game, they get awareness checked because they're only in wood. You can see here, he actually swaps the hards as he comes in towards the end of zone and as it gets a bit more congested. But when it's free, he uses wood just like this. It's a perfect example of how to use your mats endgame efficiently. This right here is the best and most safe edit you can do endgame when you've got somebody full boxed. So this is the exact situation I'm talking about, where a guy ends up in your box and you've got the stair over them. From their POV, they can't do anything apart from line up a max, because of course they can't get out in time before you pump them in the back. So this is the other guy's POV. He's going to be standing here. This is headshot level. He's going to be aiming for a headshot on you. And you quite simply just do this edit that MALIBUCA is lining up right here. And you can see, you can only see the bottom of his feet, like basically his tiptoes, which means you can only realistically hit a 40 pump, especially if you hug the backside of your box like he's doing here. And MALIBUCA is able to come in on a right-hand peek, hit a 100 tag on you. Then he's able to go ahead, take you out. And the important thing is he took absolutely no damage there in that engagement, where a lot of the times you're going to be taking at least 100 pump trade, which leaves you likely to getting jumped in on by somebody else. You can see MALIBUCA gets all of the loot, gets the splashes, and gets out the box, which is the key thing. Just quickly, if you guys are enjoying this video and you want to learn more from MALIBUCA directly, I actually did a video with him on my masterclass at the start of this season, where he broke down his full strategy and a load of advice that he had to get your first earnings and make money in these solo cash cups. He sort of perfected it over the start of the season with some things that we're looking at here in a second, but this is actually a really good video if you want to hear from MALIBUCA directly, not just me talking about what he's doing. I definitely learned a lot from talking to him and of course from watching his games today. All right, let's get straight back into the video. One of the most underrated perks this season, especially if you can't get redeploy, is the 0 point augment. When you crack somebody's shield, you get 0 points. Take a look at how MALIBUCA uses it. He simply just looks with his pump around the edge of zone for an opportunity like this. And you could obviously chase this guy if you want to go for the refresh, but what MALIBUCA does is way smarter. Instead, he dashes towards him and actually uses him as a little bit of cover. So no one's really going to be shooting the guy who's like darting through there. Instead, they're going to be focused shooting the guy who's trying to pop minis and heal up in this box if they were to be looking this way. So he uses him as cover. Of course, he's not going to edit since he's low HP. And then MALIBUCA can quite simply hammer rotate. And then while he's up in the air, you can 0 point, and you've got to remember is you don't actually take fall when you 0 point after a hammer. So you could actually go the whole way down towards low ground here, but instead he just decides to get towards front side just like this. Also very important of the 0 point is remember is you can actually get out of a box just like that. As you can see, he actually ends up darting out of the box when he got landed in someone else's box. Just be aware of that, guys, as you can put yourself in bad situations, but you can also put yourself in the best position here. Down here on low ground, where he's going to find a lot of kills and actually end up turning this into a win. The one key thing he needs to do is get some refreshes. So let's go ahead and take a look at some other games where he got refreshes and how he does it. If you guys struggle with getting refreshes in solos, I guarantee you it's because you're not implementing the 2 choke points when you should be. Stop trying to force refreshes during moving zones. Instead, try to be the first one into the end of zone. That means that there's going to be a choke point where all of the players, all 15 players here in this case, are going to be forced into a very small portion of zone. And if you're the first one there, I call it the red line, where you're the first one into that choke point, everyone else, especially on low ground, is going to get forced into your builds and your edits, and you can eventually take them out. And the second type of choke point that's equally important in a lot of cases is going to be exactly what you see here, right? Which is where it's going to be playing up a hill, so everyone is forced up. It's very awkward edits and builds for someone to actually get up safely, and a lot of the times it's going to result in them just running along your walls. Another type of a natural choke point would be like something like a hill or one of those ridges in other parts of the map where it's forced up very steeply, and you're going to find a lot of kills in those situations. So MALIBUCA is a smart thing, which is to build a 2x1, even a 3x1 forward there just to be a little bit extra safe, and then he starts looking around. Again, on this red line, he's the first one here, so everyone's going to come into his edits, and he's also in a good position here where everyone's coming up the hill in towards him. You can see how many players are scuffed on low ground around him. He takes one of them out very safely, gets all of the mats, immediately doesn't greed for anything else, he just gets forward, and MALIBUCA is constantly aware of not overstaying his welcome, right? He wants to just get out after getting a refresh and continue getting towards front side and always playing around on the front side. The reason, of course, you want to play front side is you only need to worry about what is behind you and what is around you, not what's in front of you. Now, when it comes to refreshes in solos, MALIBUCA does it a lot differently than other players. Of course, he's using those choke points, but when it comes to those final zone situations like here, what he does is very smart. He just builds a 2x1 and doesn't force anything. He just waits for the kills to come to him, and they always will if you're in a good position on a good layer like he is right here. Doesn't force anything, he's not being aggro, he's not trying to replace anything and slide a cone and risk taking damage. Instead, he's just waiting in his box in his 2x1, sitting the whole way back towards front side, and when he spots an opportunity through the wall, since of course they're transparent at this point in the game, he's just going to run straight forward, get the kill, make sure the loot is airtight. Really important step, don't miss that one out, guys. So make sure nobody can shoot you as you go for the loot. Then he moves towards front side, And he actually does something very smart here, which is to bait out the loop for a second to see if somebody else goes for it. If this guy went for it a little bit quicker, went for these sort of scraps back in Storm, then very simply Malibu could have 2 refreshes and be really stacked and probably win this game just off those mats alone. But instead, he decides to leave it. Timing was slightly off for him as he went back in Storm for the extra metal, and then just continue towards front side and continue this exact game plan. Build a 2x1, wait and patiently wait for a refresh to come for him. You can see here, there's an opportunity for a refresh where it's a little bit too aggro. There's somebody trying to spray into his box. He quite simply just leaves it and plays slow and patient and keeps on going towards front side and keeps on waiting for more refreshes to come in towards him. MALIBUCA is an absolute master of clutching games. You guys should know this by now from watching him play duos, but he's also unbelievably good at doing it in solos. And what does he do in a situation like this, where he's got no heals, he's got no mats, and he's just really scuffed and up against it? How does he find the kill to turn it around here? And it's first of all by realizing that you actually have an extra currency a lot of times in your games, which is 10 whole seconds of lurking around back in Storm before you actually go down to find a simple kill. You've got to remember as well, you actually have a 1 second grace period where you can go into Storm and not take damage for a little bit, which they changed quite a long time ago. So you can see here, as he plays in Storm with that grace period, now he's going to go ahead and start sacrificing his whites, and he stays in the Storm here for 6 whole ticks. So he's in Storm there for 7 seconds, trying to lurk around and not just be in the open running around like an idiot. And he's actually able to find a kill here very simply. Lines at the max on Conan. Master Class user actually got a win in the solo Cash Cup this week and all of the weeks so far as well. Quick ad. But then what does he do in this situation again, where now he's got a mat advantage, but he's got absolutely no HP, so he can't really play back in Storm. First of all is he gets this nice timing pump shot on this other player through the wall. Then again, even though he's only got 43 HP, he flanks around back in Storm, gets that pump shot in the back, and then perfectly goes ahead and fades into the box with the 0 point. Sprays in, just like that, gets in behind the guy. Both of them end up licking the wall, looking the wrong way, but he's able to 180, lamp a max pump, and now he's got cat mats down on low ground. He's able to actually win this game. Let's take a look at another game example of how he wins when he's got less mats. So now, how does MALIBUCA actually close out these games where he's playing it really well and he's getting to a consistent position? First of all, is he realizes that it doesn't matter necessarily what your layer is. It doesn't matter if you're on high ground or low ground or mid ground. It's normally the player with the most amount of mats that wins these games, because very simply, they can just prevent the other player from killing them, especially if they've got no mats, like in a lot of these cases. So what he does is he cuts off low ground right here. He actually cuts this other player off, forces him up onto mid ground layer, wins this angel. Again, that angel just comes in because of the fact he's in his own edits. So of course he's going to have the advantage right there. Gets 300 mats from that, and now very simply he's in a position where he can just keep on tarping on low ground. And he doesn't do the wrong thing here, which I know a lot of you guys watching would do, which is to prioritize being 150 HP for this 1v1. Let's take a look at what he does. Pops 1 mini and then cancels his mini. Why does he cancel his mini here? It's really important, is to cut the mats off from the other player. Right here, it might not look like the biggest thing, but look how many mats he gains from this. He goes up to 700 mats just from cutting off that 1 mini, stopping it early. And now the player up on height, who has heal off, he has good HP, he's got better HP than MALIBUCA in this case. He just got that siphon, has nothing, he's no builds, and that build difference is going to decide the game. This guy's forced into playing for trying to actually take out MALIBUCA here, and all MALIBUCA does, very simply, is play it nice and slow and patient, plays around on low ground. Even though he's 1 HP on the dot, he's able to just run around on low ground and just heal up, and the other player goes down because of that mat difference. Mat difference is the biggest thing in this game. If you have mats during first moving, second moving, third moving, you will win every single game. The only difference between a pro player such as MALIBUCA and one of you guys watching is he's much better at using his mats efficiently and knowing when he can get refreshes for more mats. Important thing to note is he's only getting 4 kills down entire endgame. It's just all 4 of those kills are really impactful for his game.